Hey friends, welcome back to Dish It with Des. I am Desiree, and I have Steve with me.
Yep, it's weird.
So I said that I was starting this podcast so that I could stop telling him about it, but now that Sandoval has happened, you want to know what really happened? Steve thinks it's corny to watch these shows, but then he saw some buddies at work talking about Vanderpump Rules and Sandoval, and he was like, "Oh, maybe it's not so lame after all." And then all of a sudden, he wanted to come on.
I've been watching this show for a long time.
But you
on and off.
didn't want to be on here talking about it. But now that your little friends at work, you heard them, and you're like, "All right, I don't feel so stupid talking about Vanderpump Rules."
It is what it is. I mean, I enjoy the drama. I mean, some of the people
Especially
on the
now.
show are like super fun to watch. But I miss Jax.
Ew, you do?
Yeah.
No.
He makes good TV.
He makes good TV. You are right about that. All right, so today we are going to be discussing the latest Vanderpump Rules episode called Divorce Party Crashers. So, you want to just get right into it?
Yeah, let's get right into it.
Okay, so the hard thing about this episode is Andy Cohen, saw this episode before it aired, and he said his jaw dropped because there were certain conversations and things going on, and he said it was going to seem like it was re-edited or they went back in footage or maybe even shot some things. And he is saying that 100% has not happened, that this was the episode that was supposed to air, nothing was redone, reshot, whatever. I don't think he's lying about that, but let's get into it later when we get into that dynamic of that conversation, and I'll tell you what I think is going on, because a lot of people are saying they think things are re-edited. And it
looks like it is.
It does, but I have a theory that debunks that, and it makes more sense if you understand anything about TV. So we'll get into that in a little bit. So this episode is coming off of Raquel and Oliver's makeout at the Disco Pussy. So it starts with the girls coming back from that night out back at the hotel. So you see them coming out of the elevator. Raquel is definitely super sloppy. She's
foot stuck in the elevator door, stuck her shoe.
You can tell that she drank a lot, but you can also tell that it looked like she had a good time. Yeah. She's definitely been struggling with her breakup with James, or so we thought. So to see her letting loose and whatever, I was kind of happy to see her do that, and it looks like she had a good time as they get back. So the dynamic at the hotel, very judgy.
Yeah, very judgy.
Very judgy. So you see Katie, Christina, and Lala sitting on the bed, and Raquel's heating up some food, and she comes in with her food.
Well, before that, they're just making fun of how drunk she is.
To
themselves.
They're definitely.
So
and then she walks in with her food, and she sits down, and you can tell that they're definitely judging her.
Oh, yeah.
And this is let's just get down to this from the start. This is supposed to be a divorce party. So the way Raquel is acting is honestly how all of them should have been.
Yeah.
Why is Katie not sloppily making out with somebody and heating up food in the middle of the night? I don't know. The way she is acting
They're
now.
actually acting super lame.
Yes. And it's
boring.
And this was a hard episode because there are moments where you are kind of empathizing with Raquel, but then it's should we be empathizing with her now that we know what we know? But there were still some scenes that were very hard to watch regardless of the situation. So this is a conversation that everyone was saying was not re-edited. Lala states to Raquel that she doesn't really feel comfortable around her or trust her when she's drunk. And she was like, let's put it this way. If you were drunk, I wouldn't trust you around my man. Raquel comes back and says, well, thank God you don't have a man to be around then. And they're all just and Christina actually goes, oh my God, Raquel, that's her. And you could see Lala, that triggered her.
Oh, big time.
And so she's like, we're done. This is done. You're drunk, whatever. So Raquel leaves the room with her food.
She realizes in that moment too. You could see it on her face. She says it.
Lala says later on she felt after she said it that she was kind of retract.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell that she was ooh. So she leaves the room, goes back to her room, and this scene regardless of what's going on with Raquel, just as a girl and girls can be mean, and I'm sure every female out there has experienced some girls being mean like this at some point in their life. She leaves and they're like literally making fun of her. Katie's going like, hide your boyfriend, hide your boyfriend, hide your boyfriend. Well, little do they know, Raquel was actually standing outside of the door and heard this whole conversation, and she looks like defeated. And I know that what she did with Sandoval was wrong and everybody hates her now, but you got to remember too, this also was apparently prior to everybody knowing what was going on.
Right.
So the fact that they're just being this mean to her, like, why did they invite her on the trip if you were just going to treat her like this? So that was hard to watch. And then Katie's like, oh, my stuff is in her room. So Christina offers to like go get it because she's like, you don't need it. You can get it in the morning. She's like, but it has my toothbrush in it. So Christina goes to get it for her. She walks in. Raquel has like one of those
like the Starlight.
our 2-year-old has one. And that's what she says. Like, the only person I know is like a 3-year-old girl that has one of this. But she goes back with this information that Raquel has this like nightlight on in the room. And that's another reason that they're making fun of her. Like, who has this like nightlight? I am sorry, but this is where I am always going to have an issue with Lala. And there is a lot of hypocrisy in this episode coming from Lala. And she's trying to defend herself and she cannot. Does anyone remember a few seasons back, Lala drinking a freaking baby bottle of milk in the bed? And Sheena was like, are you drinking out of a bottle? And she was like, yeah, it comforts me. So like, so that's freaking normal. But a nightlight or just something like, who, I don't know. That thing has mad calm vibes. Like when our kids have that on, I'm like, oh, like this is a vibe.
Yeah.
Excuse me, my spa that I go to has them in the room because they are relaxing.
They are.
So I don't like that they just use that too to just as a reason to make fun of her. Like, okay, Lala, with your baby bottle, shut up.
Yeah, you seem to forget.
Yeah. With that being said, let's get to my theory.
That's what we want to hear.
Yeah. So the cast, I honestly do think, like, with this information coming out, the cast genuinely seemed mind blown. So I don't want to speculate that, like, some people on the cast were aware of what was going on. I 100%, I've said this before, but I'm saying it again, and I'm going to, like, validate this now. I truly believe that somebody on production caught on to something that was happening. Because when you're in, like, that reality TV realm, the producers actually know a lot more than you think that they do. You're mic'd all the time. So we're talking, like, they could have heard a conversation where you weren't even on camera, like you stepped away and like did whatever, and they heard something. Little tidbit of information could change everything. And that's kind of where they figure out, like, where can we go with this storyline?
Right.
So I do think production knew, and what they will do is say, like, you know, when Raquel comes into the room, like, kind of say, like, that, you know, you're not comfortable with her, like, the way she's, like, trying to make out with Schwartz, and then, like, Oliver, like, it makes you uncomfortable or whatever. They will kind of put the bug in your ear with a little conversation, and I just find it hard to believe that someone on production didn't know this because it seems set up.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that it's not, and the only way it wouldn't be would be if production did it and the cast didn't really know why.
Right. So, like,
which happens all the time.
Like, the things that are being said throughout this whole episode, it really seems like...
And we're going to get into some stuff later on, too, which is like this whole episode was weird, and it seemed like certain things were planted because production knew, like, eventually shit's going to hit the fan, and everyone's going to be talking about this moment, and this is where we started to catch on or whatever. So that's my theory. Keep that in your mind, that production might have led some scenes or led some conversations or even just said, like, hey, ask this question. And the cast might not really know why, but the production team knows where that's going to go. The next scene's pretty boring, but it's only mentionable for one reason. You see Schwartz and Sheena in his apartment, and she has a stylist come over. She said that, like, he needs to fix up his wardrobe and, like, get his mojo back pretty much. And it was okay. I mean, there was nothing really exciting about this scene. I mean, Schwartz is quirky and funny, and that makes it fun.
Schwartz.
Yeah, he's funny to watch. But the only reason this is relevant at all was because this was Sheena saying that since the girls are in Vegas and I wasn't invited, we should have a boys' night to, like, celebrate you. And, like, I'll just be there because apparently I'm one of the guys not invited on girls' trips. So that's the only reason this scene's even relevant to anything. But let's get into the next scene, which was, again, heartbreaking and another hard scene to watch. And you are going to feel this, like, sense of being torn with Raquel, with knowing what you know, but also what's going on. So the girls are leaving Vegas. They get in the car and they're going to start to head to the house in Lake Havasu. And they're bringing up, Christina Kelly kind of just asked Raquel, like what happened with you and James? Like, was it kind of like something that you sat down and had a conversation about that you wanted to break up, or like, did you just end it? And she's getting into those details. I don't think it's important to discuss like those details, but the important part is talking about this. She starts to get worked up, upset. You can see it coming.
Very.
She's having a panic attack. As somebody who's experienced panic attacks, I could see it coming, and I don't care who the person is. That's hard to watch. And in this moment, they're being really nice to her.
Yeah, they're consoling
It lasted
her.
for, when I tell you, a moment, but they seemed empathetic. They seemed nice. They were like, this was where I kind of was like, oh, this is going to take a turn. And like, they're like, this is going to be good in Havasu, because like, it's, you know how like on all the other shows, they always say like with other castmates, like Real Housewives and stuff, that they feel like they can't get to know them well. They don't, whatever. And it's like, they want them to be vulnerable because that's what makes them end up being able to understand each other and be close. This was that moment.
Oh, yeah.
But this is the only time that they were like that to her.
It literally flipped right after this moment, even in the car. No? Or no?
Not in the car.
Right?
They were
okay.
definitely nice in the car. And it seemed genuine. I want to believe that it was, but like somehow later on it just goes back to almost the same exact dynamic that it was in Vegas. Next scene is extremely interesting to me. We're going into Tom Tom, and Sandoval and Schwartz are there, and Sandoval has the lightning bolt necklace on.
Yes.
If you are unaware of what this means, apparently, since they've been having this affair, Raquel and Sandoval have both been wearing lightning bolt necklaces, and like nobody caught on. He also had like a lightning bolt earring, I think. So, and this is where like I gotta wonder like what did production do here, because this scene might not have been shot at the same time as the Vegas trip. So it could have been 2 weeks later, it could have been 3 weeks later, but for some reason, this scene is planted in this episode.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know if it would be sooner or later, because the girls left Havasu to go to this party. So, like, it had to have been kind of in that same timeline.
I don't know, but, like, he has that lightning bolt necklace on. So, and again, this is why I think production knew, because I feel like they purposely put, when, it doesn't even matter when this scene was shot. It doesn't matter if it was shot while they were in Vegas, like simultaneously. It doesn't matter if it was a month later. They chose to put this scene in this episode with these conversations with Raquel, and Sandoval has a lightning bolt necklace on. That's why I'm saying I don't think that this was hidden from everybody, because the way it was edited, things were planted. So then James walks in, and they're like shooting the shit. And Schwartz brings up that Sheena wants to have this guys' night. And James starts getting into like the conversations that him and Allie have had recently, where she thinks it might be best if they all just stay away from their exes, meaning like she doesn't really want to be put in situations, or James to be put in situations where like Raquel may be there.
Right.
And it got even more interesting.
Yeah. So as soon as James mentioned that...
As soon as he said Raquel.
Yeah. He's like, oh, well... it's good that I'm not going to be, we can go out as guys, because Allie doesn't want me hanging around like Raquel or any other like exes for that matter. And as soon as he says that, they shoot to Tom, and he's like stiff. His hands are in his pocket. He's like really pulled back.
His lips look
he
tight.
Was, like, just had like this weird face.
It's just like
he was
it's a guilty,
very guarded almost.
Yes, and it's like why? And that's not his normal body language.
No,
he's always
super
like
loose,
super.
Yeah.
Chill. So the moment Raquel's mentions name, he's like. And I'm sure you would be.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I'm saying, like, something was going on. Do we want to get into what I think was going on?
I mean, now's the
best time. Okay.
Talking about it.
This is a major speculation. This is my opinion only. I have zero facts to back this up. I am just going off of a theory, because I've racked my brain since this happened. Like, why Sandoval and Raquel? I've been trying to figure out the connection, because it's like she was with James, and like Sandoval put a lot into their engagement. Like he paid for a lot of it. He set up the fireworks.
So it's like engagement party.
It's just
Or the
all
engagement
weird.
itself.
So I actually have like two possible theories with this, and I don't know. And there's always been these rumors about Sandoval and Ariana having an open relationship that they've denied, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. So these are the two scenarios I think it could be. I think like when James was with Raquel and Tom with Ariana, maybe they like all had a menage a trois or some sort
Or
of
there was
swinger
just
situation, right? And then my other theory is that because Ariana is bi. And we already know she's hooked up with Lala. Tom wasn't involved in that, but he said it was fine and like he kind of watched. And I also have the theory that maybe like there was a threesome situation going on between
Without James.
post James and Raquel breaking up.
So it could have been
Maybe like because
everybody
Ariana
together
and her,
first.
I don't know, and I don't think it has to be one or the other. I feel like because James and Tom are cool. So like I feel like if James like they were doing that before, I don't know. He's so skeezy now, so who knows?
Yeah.
But that's also a theory too that maybe there was like a threesome situation going on and production caught on to that. And then they were like, oh, this could get interesting, which is why certain conversations were being had, even if they didn't know the full details of like this whole affair yet.
Right.
And then that would make sense as to why Sandoval seems so invested even like before this timeline that they're saying. So I'm thinking maybe there was a threesome situation going on and then after the Vegas trip, Tom and Raquel started to do things behind Ariana's back without her.
Well, she was feeling down about
Her
the
dog died, like her grandmother
So
died like in the past year.
She was
So
probably pulling back, and he's like, well,
We're
she's not involved, so let me go ahead and take advantage of this situation.
I'm literally
Which
just
is
trying to figure out
fucked
any way that like to put a link between Sandoval and Raquel because her and Ariana are really close too. So I have a hard time believing that Raquel would just do that to Ariana in like I'm just gonna hook up with Tom and we're gonna hide it.
Right.
Also, side note, I found out that Tom's mom has known about this since like Christmas time, apparently,
yeah.
December, because the rumor is Raquel went back home with him for the holidays. Wait, what? Like, also, how do you do that, right? How do you go home and visit your family with Raquel and like Ariana doesn't know? Also, why is Ariana not with you? Or like, why are you guys not
Right.
together for the holidays? I don't know. I don't live out
It's
of
just-
state,
yeah,
so
it's
I don't
just a
really know
weird-
what everybody does for the
That's
holidays.
a really weird situation.
That's like horrible. I don't like that at all. So that's my theory. Like I said, I don't have anything to back that up.
Well, of course.
But it's just
it
a thought
kind of
process.
makes sense in a
Yeah,
way.
that makes more sense to me than like they just randomly decide to have an affair behind Ariana's back. Like that makes more sense to me. And that would also make sense as anyone's going to be hurt and pissed when someone's having an affair on them. But that would be even more of a betrayal if it was like a thing that everybody was cool with and then you got sneaky and started to continue to do it. Like that, I think is worse. I think it's all horrible, but I feel like that would be, I don't know. We don't do stuff like that. We don't invite other people into our relationship, but I'm trying to picture if you just went and had like an affair behind my back, or if it was like something we agreed on and then you chose to be sneaky and go off on the side and like leave me out of it. I just feel like that would be worse. I've never experienced it, so I don't know, but it just sounds worse. That like you're all on board and then all of a sudden you two decide we're going to leave her out of this. And she's not the one. She's the one in the
easier situation because for someone to start talking and then to lead to
also like
sleeping together,
they apparently
that takes a little time.
Yeah.
But like if they just said, "Oh, we're drunk," or "Let's have a threesome," and then they hook up,
even
and
like
then
not a full blown
the
threesome,
doors
but
are
maybe like the
open.
three of them were like making out. I don't know. Like it doesn't even have to be like intercourse, but I just am having a hard time finding any other reason to like link them together. And that's
It seems like
literally
somehow
the
she
only
was
thing I've come up with.
brought into that
And I
relationship
think what
at some
happened
point.
was that like Tom and Raquel really did start to have feelings for each other. And I think like him and Ariana have kind of been drifting apart the past few years. And I think when this was like fresh and new. So I think that's why they decided to be sneaky about it, was because actual feelings started to get involved. And that's when the lightning bolt necklaces started to come into play. Just a theory, but a good one. And a juicy one, if that is what's going on.
Let's roll with it.
Let's roll with it. So then we're going to go to the Havasu house. They get there. Charlie arrives. So Charlie's another server at Sir. You don't see her that much, but she's funny when she's on screen.
She's fun.
She gets there, and then they are going to go to dinner. Dinner does not go well.
No, to say the least.
Honestly, like as soon as they sit, and this is another.
They all had like the bitch faces on. As
Like
soon
they
as
were
sat
ready.
down, like they were ready for something to happen.
And this is another little tidbit that I think was planted by production. So I think production prompted Charlie to say, like, how was last night? Like, what was the vibe of the restaurant? Like, did you guys hook up with anybody? Were the servers cool? Whatever. Because she literally looks like she doesn't know why she's asking it. She looks like she's asking it, but she's kind of like... And then they all start giggling. And you can see Raquel immediately looks uncomfortable. And the three girls are doing their mean girl, like, giggling. And Charlie's like, what? Like, what's going on? So then they mention the Oliver thing. And, like, shit hits the fan. Pretty much.
Pretty much.
And, like, Katie starts getting into it with her about, like, asking Schwartz to make out. And they're bringing up, again, how, like, they don't trust her. And they feel like... And Charlie's, like, trying to defend her. Now, Charlie has stated now that she feels a little bit stupid defending Raquel, knowing what she knows now.
Right.
In the moment, she didn't know, though. And she was just like, listen, like, maybe some of the things... Because they mentioned, like, the good thing you don't have a man to bring around. And Charlie's like... That wasn't right, but she's like, but I'm also enjoying seeing Raquel, like, loosen up and, like, come into her own. And, like, I think we all were kind of excited to see that, Raquel. And this whole Sandoval has blown it for us. But it would have been nice to see without that information. So let's get into this, like, catty conversation going on a little bit more. So Raquel brings up the fact that, like, Lala, you gave me the okay to hook up with Oliver. And Lala saying that that is not what she has a problem with at all. It was a conversation back at the room about the man thing. Charlie says that she thinks that Lala's just bitter because Oliver didn't choose her.
And it could
That's
be.
what it looks like, honestly. Like, if you just take everything else out of it, like, it looks like it was kind of like a little competition. And Lala, like, just, for some reason, she really thinks she's, like, up here. We're talking about, like, a D-list celebrity that thinks that she is, like, Angelina Jolie. Because she was not married, but had a baby with, like, a D-list movie producer. Like... that sounds mean as hell, but it is the truth. And Lala thinks she's above everybody. So, like, I do think she was bitter because she was like
she thinks she can get whoever she wants. And she made it seem like in that scene also that she was, she's attracted to him and she could have him if she wanted. But she's like, no, Raquel, you go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, bitch, don't tell her to go ahead.
They both were talking to him.
Yeah.
So, like, if he wanted her,
like
he would have made out with her.
Yeah.
Or he would have got a lot further with Lala than he probably would have with Raquel. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Like, Lala would have been ready to go. So then Raquel gets into Lala being a hypocrite, which I think we all can agree with that. Regardless of Sandoval, she's always a hypocrite because she brings up, like, you know, you have a problem with all this stuff, but, like, you were hooking up with James in the beginning of my relationship. And she starts, so that was 6 years ago. That was 6 years ago. Charlie brings up a decent piece of information here too. She goes, that might be 6 years ago for you, but this is new to her. She just found out about this. So, and Lala has the nerve to say, I was drunk. What was Raquel the night before? Shitface.
Yep.
And that's, and Lala.
It was an excuse for Lala, but it's not an
and
excuse
Lala
for
is
Raquel.
stating that there was things cut out of this too, that, like, where she was going with that was, like, I was drinking back then, and then she apparently, like, it didn't make it into the episode, but she said something along the lines of, like, yeah, and, like, that was a moment, like, that's when I realized I needed to stop drinking. So, like, if you're doing that, you need to stop drinking.
It's easy to say
She's
that
trying to use, because everyone's, like, coming
TV.
at her for being a hypocrite, and that's, like, that's her story. That's it. That's all she's got. So, Raquel definitely, this is where she pisses off Lala big time, because she brings up, let's not forget that you were sleeping with a married man. Like, you were a mistress. The word mistress always sends Lala to the moon. And she was, though.
She was. That's why it pisses her off, because she was a mistress.
And what did Charlie say? Something about, like, let's talk about how you went from a mansion to an apartment.
Yes.
Charlie is so petty, and I'm here for it. Like, her little moments are, like, everything. Like, she doesn't have many moments, but she makes the best of those moments that she has.
You got to take advantage of it when you can.
And that, like, Lala is being 100% hypocritical here. Like, they're harping on, like, Raquel trying to make out with Schwartz, and it's like, okay, Schwartz is, like, getting a divorce. Like, you were hooking up with James, who was in a relationship, regardless of whether it was the beginning of the relationship or not. He made Raquel his girlfriend. That was a relationship. You were hooking up with your baby daddy, who was in a full-blown marriage. And you were admitting that you're giving blowies for PJs. You're giving BJs for PJs.
Yeah, that's what it was.
You cannot say that about yourself and then get mad when someone says that about you. I am sorry. Like, you think it's okay to, like, you think it's funny to be like, I'm giving BJs for PJs, but now someone calls you a mistress and that crosses the line? Like, ma'am, you have no line. You have nothing. Like, you should be more worried about yourself than Raquel around your man, because she wasn't going for Randall. Let's be real. No one was. Like, all right, moving on. After this fight, let's just cut straight to the next morning. You see the three mean girls. That's just what we'll call them. The mean girls on the little balcony, just talking about the night before and doing their little mean girl thing. And then Charlie and Raquel wake up in the same room and they decide that they're not going to stay. Like Raquel says, I don't feel comfortable. Like, I feel like it was a mistake for me to come here. And they decide they're going to go crash boys' night in LA. So they go out on the balcony and they say that they're going to leave. And Raquel, for some reason, decides to say, like, we're going to leave and we're going to go meet up with Sheena and Schwartz. And that, like, sets them off. She should have just let that out.
I don't understand why she had to bring that up, but you know what?
Production probably said, don't just say you're going to leave. Let them know that you're crashing boys' night.
Right.
You got to keep that in mind. So, like, to us, it's like, why would she say that? Like, you could have just kept that to yourself. But she was probably prompted to do that.
Right.
So they're going to leave, and like, can we just stay? We're going to say this right now, and we're going to continue this narrative through the end. This is the worst divorce party I have ever seen in my life. Like, if I was getting divorced and this is what I was doing, I'm pretty sure I would run back to LA and tell Schwartz it was all a mistake and we should stay married. Because if this is what single life is looking for Katie,
it's starting off pretty bad.
This blows.
She met that one guy at the other bar.
But she didn't even, like...
No,
she was just texting him, like, bit, okay.
She's not ready for
I'm sorry. If I was having a divorce party and I'm not, like, showing my titties and shaking my ass and I'm not... I should... Like, how Raquel was...
That should be... That's
falling out of the elevator like that is how Katie should be.
Yeah.
And she's, like, with a stick up her ass like usual, like, on her high horse judging everybody instead of, like, letting loose and enjoying herself. It's lame as hell.
Mm-hmm. And it gets worse. And we'll get there.
It gets worse. God, it gets worse. Yeah, Raquel and Charlie are gone. And what the three girls decide they're going to do with their day, again, just looks really freaking boring. They are just sitting on a boat. Like, we're not talking about, like, the boat is, like, out and about, like, driving. This isn't, like, a yacht party.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool.
The boat is parked. And, like, I've been to Havasu before. And, like, that kind of is how it is. Like, there's, like, the lake, but then there's also, like, these canals. And, like, all the boats just kind of park on the side. And people just sit.
It was a boat, because on the sign it said, like, rent this cabana, and it looks like
it's like a dock.
Yeah, it looks like a houseboat, and it has like a grill and stuff.
They just have like a float in the water.
Jump off, and there's a float there.
But also
they don't go anywhere.
Yeah, they're just sitting there drinking. But how lame is this? The boat next to them is a bachelor party. Like, I'd be so pissed off if I was getting a divorce and I have like dudes celebrating next to me that are like celebrating a wedding, like a future wedding, like. If that is not the worst divorce party ever, I don't know what is. So let's be done with them for now, because we have to go over to Schwartz and Sandy's, not Tom.
Schwartz and Sandy's.
Schwartz and Sandy's, they're going to have a menu tasting with like the other partner, Greg. And so we're seeing Tom and Ariana together. He does not have the lightning necklace on. He has a necklace on, but it is not a lightning bolt. Like, they seem okay. I don't notice much weirdness between the two of them. She definitely seems down, but like, she literally just had to put her dog Charlotte down.
And she starts crying over this in
her confessional.
No, in that scene. When
right, and then it cuts to the confessional, and she's still crying.
Schwartz asks her, like,
he said, "How was the girls' trip?" And he was like, "Why am I even asking? Like, you weren't even there, because she left as soon as she got there." And then it goes to her confessional, and she's saying like how she was holding Charlotte and just telling her she loved her, and like so. Ariana seems a little bit off, but like rightfully so, considering what she just went through. I'm not seeing anything major off between them.
No, not really. No.
Menu looks bomb. Like the stuff that they're trying, like I feel like it all looked really good. And their whole thing is the location that they're Franklin Village.
Yeah.
Apparently, like, the type of food that they're trying to put out is not, like, the kind of food that you would get in Franklin Village. Normally, you would have to leave that area to go to, like, a restaurant that has that type of food. So they're trying to bring something there that isn't there already.
Which is a great idea.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal idea. But, like, that was the only thing really going on in that scene. And I was really just ready to dissect the dynamic between, and even like Schwartz and Ariana seem so cool and like close in this moment, and like not that they have anything to do with it, but I have a hard time believing Schwartz would have known in that moment anything was going on because he's just so normal with her, and Schwartz like when he's uncomfortable, you can tell, and he was like they were like high-fiving over stuff and everything, so like I don't see any weird dynamic here. Back to the girl ship. Okay, Lala and Christina bring this piñata that looks like Schwartz. It's filled with like tequila, condoms, and a dildo.
Yep.
So they have Katie like whack it, and she like whacks the head off, and then it gets really weird after this, and like Lala's
drinking their little bottles of tequila.
This is like the most depressing thing ever. Like Lala brings up like, well, I feel like you're handling it so well and whatever, and then they're all just like crying, and I'm like, oh. This is not anything, like, this isn't fun at all. If this is supposed to make her, like, ready to go back into the world and, like, meet boys, I would literally never come out of my house after this if this is how it went.
Or it's supposed to be something that's going to help you take your mind off of the divorce.
It got worse.
All they kept doing is asking her about the divorce.
But then after this, they go out to this, like, lame-ass bar. Like, you can see the crowd in here is, like, it's, like, old people and, like, people that have, like, spiked mohawks. I don't know.
It's a super diverse crowd.
It's like some very country-looking America type of bar. And it just was lame. It didn't look like a good time. No. Like, not much to talk about. Again, just adds to, like, the absolute lameness of this girls trip. So let's be done with the freaking girls trip because that thing sucked.
Yeah, I think they realized it was lame. And that's why they started talking to those guys.
Yeah. Well, that was like literally the highlight of their trip, and it wasn't even that exciting.
No.
So we have to be done with that because that was horrible. So let's go to boys' night because the boys are just like the dynamic with them right now was like way juicier than with the girls. So we have to stick with them right now. All right. So this is the boys' night that Raquel and Charlie are planning on crashing. I was like ready to find anything I could, and man, did it deliver. This scene was so good because if you're just looking at body language and dynamics, you can catch on to stuff right away in this moment. Sheena calls the girls' trip a sad get-together, which is accurate, and that the boys' night is going to be a party. And it looks like fun, right? Like, they're all sitting down, like, they look like they're having a good time.
There was like 10 people there, 10 or 11 people there.
Yeah, it looked like
Meanwhile, the 3 at the girls' party.
Yeah, this was definitely a party where that was just like a weird trip. So, Sheena says something like, oh, well, did you hear 2 girls left the girls' trip? So now it's just like the 3 lame girls. And James starts getting into it like, oh, yeah, Lala called me and she said she had to put Raquel in her place and blah, blah, blah. The moment Raquel gets brought up in this situation, Sandoval looks almost angry, like, because he can hear that, like they're being mean to Raquel.
Yeah.
And that's why she left. And his body language is as if they're talking about Ariana, like as if they're treating Ariana like this. It was definitely like he looks mad. Yep. He looks like ready to
He sunk back in his chair.
He looked annoyed. He looked like he was ready to fight somebody over it. And it's like, why are you so irritated? You know? And then the 2 girls show up. And this is the moment I was waiting for, and this is like where it ends. They're leaving us on this cliffhanger. As soon as they get there, they're like, and when they walk in, he goes from looking angry to like he just saw the love of his life walk in, and what happens? Raquel goes right in for a hug with Sandoval. Like, doesn't even say hi to anybody else.
Nobody.
And that's where it's like, and I am saying this is maybe when their relationship took a turn, and I bet you there was a conversation, like, I'm leaving Vegas, like, I'm coming back to hang out with you guys, and they're being horrible to me, and most likely that's why his body language shifted, and I feel like maybe, like, this is where that dynamic went from, like, a group dynamic to a just me and you dynamic, because I think he was really feeling bad for her in this moment, like, really wanted to be there for her, and I think this is where the feelings really caught on.
Yeah, we're going to find out a lot in the next episode, because the
rest of the season is going, and I have heard that, like, later on, there is a kiss between Sandoval and Raquel that we will see on camera.
I don't doubt it.
But, like, when? Because we're going to have Sheena and Brock's wedding, and she kisses Schwartz there, so it's like, Chris and Dodie said that later on, there is an on-screen kiss.
Kristen
Where the hell
go
did Chris, like,
she always wants to be
but I figured
in
out
the
why.
forefront.
Apparently Ariana, like, when this all went down, like, she wanted Kristen to come and film with her that day because they are really close now. So we have to remember that the Ariana and Kristen drama, I mean, her and Sandoval have been together for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking like Sandoval and Kristen are like a decade ago. That is water under the bridge. And they're all in the same circle of friends. So it's still, even though some of these people aren't on the show, they still have relationships. And Kristen is now, I'm pretty sure she is a lot closer with like Sheena and Ariana than she is with like Katie and Stassi.
Okay.
That's apparently what the dynamic is now. And Ariana, word on the street is requested, and it was just like one day of filming or something. It's not like she's back on the show, but apparently Ariana wanted her to film in that moment or whatever. So she was the one that mentioned that there is an on-screen kiss. And then after this, this is pretty much it for the episode. But
yeah, credits start rolling. And
after this is Watch What Happens Live. So Katie's on. And there were some questions like asked. And really the only thing that stuck out to me, because you could tell she didn't want to say much. And it's understandable. I think all of them are pretty tight-lipped right now because it's going to play out on camera. So they probably have very strict instructions on what they can and cannot say.
Right.
Because they don't want to give up any information because they want that shock value. But she did, like, Andy Cohen, like, mentioned something. First, he mentioned, like, how long do you think Schwartz knew? And she's saying she doesn't think it was very long. Like, she thinks that he definitely knew before the rest of them did, but not much long before them. And that if she found out that Schwartz knew, like, way longer, that she would literally, like, kill him. And I agree. Katie's a bitch, so she probably would, like, literally whack his head off, like the piñata.
She's scary.
Yeah, she's just, like, mean. Like, she's just not very warm. She's pretty cold and mean. But also, she says that apparently she wasn't surprised by the affair. And that
Which
just
gives a thought.
That just,
maybe
I feel
she
like
knew
it
that
just...
they had something going on a while ago.
Yeah, and, like, some of them are even saying that they're not even surprised that it was with Raquel. So, like, why?
Why?
Because to me, like, if you take my thoughts out of it and my theory, it seems freaking random.
It does. Well,
and especially because Ariana and Raquel are close, and, like, James and Tom are. So it's like, we're talking about, like, not just your girlfriend, but this is one of your really good friends, like, ex-fiance that she dumped, like, pretty much dumped him on the reunion last year. Although I feel like Sandoval's reaction, now that I went back and watched that reunion, I feel like his reaction seemed a little bit off. If you want to go back and rewatch that and reevaluate that, it seemed like, I don't know.
Now, how long ago was that from?
I don't remember. July? I don't know. I think the reunion was like in July. But, you know, that's just where it's going. And I can't help but just think of that piece of information that Katie says she wasn't surprised. Why? Something was going on. And whether they knew the full extent of it, they knew something, I think. And I think production knew something and maybe knew a little bit more, like, because it was actually something that my friend Ben doesn't watch the show either, but he's very invested in this Sandoval. So, like, he's like, I'm depending on you to keep me in the loop. So he's sending me things in case it's relevant. And he sent me this thing, and I think it was from a previous season. I have to look at Lala's confessional looks this season and see if it would be this season or last. But she's, like, talking to someone on production, and, like, I thought this was common sense, but apparently, like, people on TV might not realize this, that, like, they're mic'd. And so she's kind of saying to them, like, oh, wait, so, like, you guys, like, listen to our conversations even when we're not filming? And they're like, yeah. And she's like, so, like, you could hear a conversation between somebody and then know, like, oh, when Lala finds this out, she's going to have this kind of reaction to it. And they can kind of set it up that way. And she was like, oh, wow, I never realized that. So.
This is Lala saying this.
Yeah.
She is so dumb.
Yeah. I mean, if you're mic'd, they can hear you
all the time.
And that's why when you see people on reality TV and they don't want shit heard, they're like they're like, we're not doing this. Stop filming. Like, they break that fourth wall.
Right.
Because if you got a mic on, they can hear you. So something was said along the lines, and it could have been something like even as simple as, like, they're all in a group setting and Tom and Raquel go off and he's like, hey, am I going to see you later? And she's like, yeah, that alone. And they're like,
they're like, oh, what's going on?
Yep. So,
and then they'll pay more attention to those people off camera.
Yep. And also just, like, save it for a rainy day if they need to. You know what I mean? So I don't think things were re-edited, but I think that things were known and set up in a way to make it like this. Because I can't picture this episode just coincidentally coming together with these conversations about not trusting Raquel around their men and the lightning bolt necklace. And And
necklace is
then she goes
interesting.
home and she crashes boys. I don't know. It's all a little bit too much for like nobody knew anything. Not buying it. Somebody knew. So that's it. But now that I've given you this theory to think of and like the role that production has, I want you to think of that going forward. And think of like, and look for things like Charlie looking like she's asking a question, but she doesn't know why and she looks confused. Look for those little moments because most likely it was a prompt that she wasn't aware of, but they knew where that was gonna go.
She looked like a deer in the headlights the whole time.
Yeah, and like they're all giggling, and she's like, "What? What's so funny?" Like you could tell she has no idea, but you feel like it was some semi set up so that they could get that conversation going at the table.
Yep.
But that is it for now. Steve, thanks for joining me. Are you going to tell all your friends at work?
No, I'm not. I'm just going to let them watch it, hopefully.
And they're going to be like, oh, there's my buddy.
There's my buddy.
So you might see Steve every once in a while. And
we'll see. Know.
So until next time, juicy details. And if anything new comes out, I'm going to keep it in my Rolodex for future. I'm reading articles like crazy. I don't know if you guys are. I saw this meme that said like, my screen time is up 43% and this week, and I'm strictly blaming that on Sandoval because I think we're all like this. But thank you for watching. We will see you next time.
Bye.